Hello, and welcome to Totally Schway, Flipside, a podcast about whatever the hell I want it to be about. And today, I want it to be about the comments from the last video. Luke, do you have any news for today?
Only that you recall in our last episode of Totally Schway, we talked about going to the Gosh Comics Batman event, and we went.
Oh no.
We went.
Oh no.
Yes, so the day started out quite terribly. I'll just give you a very brief recap. Started out quite terribly. So the trains weren't running to where we needed to go. So we had to get an Uber to a different station.
He's exaggerating, by the way. It wasn't that
It
bad.
was pretty bad. We had to get an Uber to a different station and then wait half an hour for a train to turn up. And then we had to get on. Where did we even go? Because we were going to get the Elizabeth line, but the Elizabeth line was down. Then we were going to get the Central line, but the Central line was down. So we ended up going to London Bridge. Yeah, we went to London Bridge, changed to a train, went to Charing Cross, and then just walked up, which was, not the end of the world, but very frustrating. It was pouring it down with heavy rain the whole time.
I'm just going to say this.
Yes,
I was prepared, and I'm not from England, and I have a raincoat.
Wow.
Just saying.
Yes, well, I got absolutely soaked because my jacket, which I grabbed, didn't have a hood. I thought it had one in the zip, but
Wait,
no.
It might have two.
You had two hoods. You had a hoodie on and a jacket with a hood.
Mm-hmm.
But we got there quite early. We had something to eat somewhere, and then we came back, and we were like fourth or fifth in the queue, something like that.
But our breakfast was not very nice.
I mean, it was basic.
I'm not gonna tell you where we ate though.
The staff were nice, and the atmosphere was
Yeah,
nice.
the staff were excellent.
But the food was kind of lukewarm, and also when we had some pancakes, they were quite dry. But anyway, this isn't a breakfast podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it now? Because it's whatever the hell you want it to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, we went into the event and they had a whole load of boxes in the upstairs. So it's kind of like the ground floor, I suppose. You call it upstairs because they've got a basement where they keep all the comics usually.
Mm-hmm.
And we were pottering around in there. And then the lady up there said, oh, yeah, the more valuable stuff's downstairs. And I went down there and I swear to God, it was like a Batman gold mine.
No, I'm not just gonna stop asking because it's my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed upstairs.
You did.
I went downstairs once, but there's like, if you've ever been to Gosh, you know that like a lot of their comics, if not all of their comics, are downstairs, but there's a little platform between the actual downstairs and the stairs, and I was there for a few minutes until there's always at least one person that's like, Jesus Christ, so many people. Why'd you come then? Well, I wanted to turn my ass around and say, why did you come? This is fun for us. Like, why do you want to come and ruin it for us? Goodbye, Felicia.
Despite the
It was
fact,
a man, by the way.
yeah, I know. Despite the fact that it was really crowded and very busy, everyone was kind of like well behaved and polite.
Especially to me, like they were so lovely.
And it had a rule of like basically, if you had it in your hands, it was yours.
Mm-hmm.
So I was waiting for the guy with the stepladder because they had all of their most expensive stuff on the wall, up on like some high shelves, and I was waiting for him. And first thing I saw just when I glanced around the room was Batman number 121 from 1958, the first appearance of Mr. Freeze back when he was called Mr. Zero.
I love how you're saying all this important stuff, and I've just like torn off the paper towel to clean my glasses.
Mm-hmm, yeah, she knows all this. She was there.
Yeah.
But I said I want that one, and that was one of the more expensive ones, which really hurt me. But I couldn't turn it down. They had so many tremendous things at really reasonable prices.
But you work very hard for your money, and you deserve to be able to do stuff like this because it's not an everyday thing. And if that's what you want to do, just like with all of these people there, if that's what you want to spend your money on that you've worked very hard for, then do it. If it's not going to put you in debt or anything, no, don't do it every week. But
No.
These items came from someone who you could definitely tell that they loved Batman. Like you could definitely tell.
Yeah, they were all from one person's collection, over 20,000 comic books. I bet most of them are still there. Gosh, but most of the, I mean, they had like really tremendous stuff. Like I forget the issue of Detective Comics, but it's the first appearance of the Martian Manhunter. They had that one there. I couldn't afford that one, or at least not without going into serious debt. But I literally just got out of serious debt. I don't want to get back in, um, even for John Johns.
Um, do you want to tell me what I got?
Yeah. So while I was like patiently pouring through the comic boxes and picking out what I thought were some really good bargains, Mary, you were upstairs. I was going to say with the riffraff. That's not
Oh
what I
no,
mean.
there was really
That's a joke.
nice things up there, but it
Yeah,
was more of like magazines and merch rather than comics. There were a few comics upstairs, but nothing like more newer things, I think.
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I heard, because I didn't actually look at the comic books. I looked at the magazines, but I heard people. There were these two men in particular, so super nice. Um, they were talking about it because they wanted to go downstairs, but they had mentioned like they're gonna let it settle a bit or
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, even with dozens of people down there cherry picking the best stuff, there was still a ton of excellent stuff there that you just don't usually see. Not even in most American comic shops. I was looking at Mile High Comics' back issues of Batman and Detective Comics from
Who I
that era.
love.
They didn't have most of the ones that I picked out there. Um, but when I've reduced the debt that I have even further, I'm going to go back and I'm going to see if they've got anything else that's good there.
I'm
But
gonna go to Mile High Comics while you do that.
yeah, fly out to Denver. But yeah, that was basically it. I got
You
my
didn't actually say what I got though.
no. What did you get then, Mary?
So I got a Beware. Is it Beware the Batman or is
No,
it
it's
the
the
Batman?
Batman
Okay, whatever Luke said. Like party bag, like gift bag, and I got four or five Batman the animated series.
slash new Batman
Yeah,
Adventures.
slash New Batman Adventures. Um, birthday. I think they're birthday cards or
Yeah,
celebration cards. I finally got my hands on the was it Flux? FLUXX, I think is what they're called. Cards. It's a game for BTAS. And
got a Justice League sticker book.
yeah, I got a Justice League sticker book, as in Justice League.
Zack Snyder Justice League.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that it?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I helped pay because our anniversary was it anniversary or Valentine's Day? I can't remember. I think it's
It was
anniversary.
Valentine's Day.
No, wait, Valentine's Day. I helped pay for one of the comics, I
Hmm.
think,
Yeah,
which is we ended up going back a second time because we had to return. uh, So I Luke got me something from the Great Frog.
a jeweler's on Carnaby Street for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah, we needed to get a bracelet repaired, and um, Luke kept saying something about an Ace comic, like one that had like Ace in it, and
The dog.
yeah,
Mhm.
Ace the dog, and he's like, he was like debating on going back, and then I just walked that way, so
Yeah,
because they're not very far from each other,
no,
um, because Great Frog is near Carnaby Street,
yeah.
and so is Gosh.
Hmm.
So yeah.
But yeah, I'll probably swing by there again on Wednesday when I'm next in town.
Mhm.
Might be able to pick up your bracelet then if they've fixed it.
Mhm.
Um, if they haven't, it'll have to be the week after.
Mm.
No problems.
It's not like we live very far from there.
Spoilers.
We live in England. Getting anywhere in England is just not I mean it can be a feat, but it's not that big of a feat for me. Shall we get to the comments?
Yes.
Oh, I have to say something, and I'm so kind of pissed off about this, but I am not well, as you could probably hear. That's what happens when you live with a chronic condition, is you get sick from time to time. So I apologize. I won't go on and on about it, but it's just a little bit of a cold, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have to do life as normal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I just wanted to say if that's my voice sounded different, or if it sounds different and then it's normal and then it sounds different, it's normal. It keeps doing that. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the comments then. So I'm going to start with the newest comments because it makes it much easier for me. And it's the return of Michael Dolan, who has been popping up in some videos of mine leaving comments, but it's been a while since he's commented on Totally Schway. So let's go to Michael Dolan's comment. It says, "Ahoy, Mary and Luke. I know I've been away for entirely too long, but I'll explain later. Thoughts on The Way of All Flesh first. Corbyn's luxurious prison cell with gourmet meals works to convey what a hedonist, or at least a sensualist, he is, demonstrating the delight he takes in the physical pleasures soon to be denied to him, or at least in a family-friendly way. I'm reminded of Pirates of the Caribbean Curse of the Black Pearl film, where Barbossa and his undead crew obsess over what they're going to eat when they've returned to mortal flesh. When you spend your life eating at least 3 times a day, going years without it will weigh far more heavily upon you than going the same time without. Well, let's just say that I'm 54 and I can't imagine having the time or energy to do that other thing at least 3 times a day." And his anger at not feeling anything when kissing Lois or grabbing Luther's lady friend isn't just about a lack of arousal, it's about losing all sensations of touch. Yes, of course. As Victor Free says, to never walk again on a summer's day with a hot wind in your face and a warm hand to hold, oh yes, I'll kill for that. Even Darkseid appreciates a nice comfy chair. The unbreakable super alloy has to be called Metallo because if they'd called it adamantium, Marvel will sue. But I would expect that if the kryptonite is radioactive enough to power Corbyn's new android body, Luther would have made sure to have it shielded with lead. It's better established in the comics, but just because kryptonite exposure kills Superman quickly, that doesn't mean it won't kill ordinary humans who spend enough time around it slowly. I also think that Luther lying to Corbyn about it being a transplant and callously killing him so that the Metallo android is running on a mere copy of Corbyn's memories and personality while the original mind is irretrievably dead makes the whole business that much more horrific. The music used for Metallo's motif, reproduced by Luke as he describes the episode's final shot, reminds me of just a little bit of the Borg theme composed by Ron Jones for Star Trek's Next Generation's The Best of Both Worlds episode, suggesting a relentless machine can only be evaded but never truly stopped. As the Totally Schway community resident Star Trek nerd, I assure you that Malcolm McDowell does not have a nude scene in Star Trek Generations. Must have just implanted that in my brain then. He does have a scene where he sadistically tortures Geordie LaForge, so that fulfills his contractually obligated creepiness requirement for that film. He needs some milk before a bit of old ultra-violence.
I mean, I forgot we were going to do that, but we're going to have to do it.
I forgot too.
You need some milk.
I was in my 20s when Spider-Man the Animated Series came out, so I only caught it in passing, but I do recall the most egregious example of the limitations enforced on the show by broadcast standards and practices. Dr. Morbius, the living vampire, wasn't allowed to drink blood in a kid's cartoon, so he went on about thirsting for plasma. Yes. And he wasn't allowed to bite anyone on their necks to obtain it either. Funnily enough, there's a similar restriction in the BTAS episode Eternal Youth, where Batman is combining equal parts Poison Ivy's formula with human plasma. Just thought I'd share that.
Word.
Yeah, and he wasn't allowed to bite anyone on the necks to obtain it either, so no, instead he had lots of tiny lamprey mouths on the palm of his hands and fingers, so he would clutch his victims by their faces and leave dozens of red ring-shaped sucker scars on them. Well done, Fox broadcast standards and practices. That clearly won't give the children nightmares for life. No, surely not. And the scene of Corbyn tearing off his artificial skin in the mirror reminds me of my favourite Doctor Who monsters, the Cybermen. In the episode The Age of Steel, there's an absolutely haunting scene of a Cyberman forced to remember the human it used to be, pawing clumsily at its reflection, making an anguished electronic keening sound. Also very universal horror. And speaking of universal horror, it's later and time to explain my absence for the last 8.5 months. I've been on a bit of an odyssey. It started the day last May that I went to the New Jersey HorrorCon and Film Festival in Atlantic City when I recorded that little video of my Christopher Walken impression. That morning I found a pop blister on my right foot when getting out of the shower. I thought little of it, putting on some Neosporin equivalent and a sterile pad on it, and figured it would be fine. It was not fine. Over the coming days I began to feel awful, dizzy, nauseous, unsteady on my feet, no appetite for anything but liquids, unable to keep anything down, and I did manage to eat, and eventually just vomiting up raw stomach acid without warning. Chills and shivers became convulsions. Feverish, my brain drifted in and out of 3 separate time zones, and I passed out in my chair for up to 12 hours at a time. After missing a few days of work, my supervisor called to ask if I was all right. I told him that I most certainly was not and needed a ride to the urgent care just up Route 9 as I was in no shape to drive. I had a similar pop blister on my hip get infected back in 2020, and they had given me some antibiotics and told me to set up a visit to the nearby surgeon to trim away the necrotic tissue. That's a whole other story for another day. So I figured the same thing would happen in this case. My supervisor arrived at my house to find me passed out in the hatchback trunk of my car and said, "Forget urgent care, I'm taking you to the hospital." And so I was admitted to Community Medical Centre in Toms River on the 2nd of June, and after taking one look at my foot, they said they needed to get me to surgery immediately. My right foot wasn't simply infected, it was "this is how zombie movies start infected," and it was completely kicking the legs out from under the rest of my system. The surgeons removed as much of the nasty stuff from my underside of my foot as possible, and even had to open up the top to get at the really infected sections. After the first surgery, a series of blood tests, x-rays, sonograms and MRIs followed, trying to determine the extent of the interior damage. I was placed on a broad-spectrum heavy-duty antibiotics delivered via 4-hour IV drip twice a day. Every couple of days, a team from podiatry would come in to change the dressing and see what was going on underneath. A podiatrist, 2 interns, and a man I thought of simply as the technician with an apron utility belt full of tools and supplies who would dismantle and reassemble my bandages with all the speed and precision of a one-man NASCAR pit crew. The test came back and the results were grim. 2 toes on my right foot, the pinky and the one that does not get roast beef, were gangrenous. Worse, the infection had spread to the bone, and when that happens there's nothing left to do but to amputate it to stop it spreading further. Surgery was scheduled for the first week of June, and while the surgeons would endeavour to save as much healthy tissue as they could, I was warned that even if successful, there was still a non-zero probability that I might end up losing the entire foot or even the entire right leg. Yes. And it continues in the second part of the comment. So the night before the surgery, I had a dream in which my late brother Zach appeared to me looking like Hagrid, the half-giant's louder cousin from New Jersey, and he told me, "All right, it's here, the worst day of your life. It's not coming anymore, it's here, and you're in the middle of it. But here's the thing nobody tells you. What's after this? It's the day that's better than this. Because if this is the worst day of your life, then categorically the next day can't be as bad, and you'll find that there's a long line of days lined up behind it that aren't as bad. This wasn't the end of the world, just a long series of new inconveniences and aggravations that you would inevitably get used to." So I went under the scalpel a second time. The 2 gangrenous toes were amputated, along with about half of each of the 2 metatarsal bones that connected the toes to the ankle, leaving me with about 80% of my right foot. A few days later, the podiatry pit crew installed a suction hose under the bandages and connected it to a machine called a wound vac, about the size of a toaster oven, clamped to the end of my bed. It would draw out any unpleasant fluids remaining in the area rather than let them drain and pool in the bandages and pull healthy tissue in to fill the gap. Things were difficult. I could generally only use a gentleman's room twice a day, as I had to wait for my 2 4-hour IV antibiotic infusions to finish before I could unhook from them and the wound vac in order to leave my bed. And I had to figure out how to use the heel of my right foot as a kickstand, keep the injured portion off the ground, and lever myself on a walker frame like a gymnast on parallel bars while bringing my uninjured left foot forward to support my weight, then repeat the process for each subsequent step. But the doctors were hopeful and pleased with my progress, so I was as well. I began to think Zach's shade was right and things were slowly getting better. And then my father arrived. I've mentioned it elsewhere, but for those who don't know, my father is an abusive, bullying, bigoted, narcissistic sociopath who views people, even his own children, as little more than human-shaped bundles of things they can do for him. He wasn't interested in raising 3 sons to be good men. He was interested in shaping us into obedient extensions of his will and convenient stepladders for when he needed to feel taller by standing on our throats. Like the chip containing the Joker's digitized consciousness in Tim Drake's head in Batman Beyond, he became the little voice in the back of my brain, constantly telling me that I'm not smart enough, not strong enough, not good enough, telling me that I don't deserve to live for committing the unpardonable sin of failing to be who and what he expected me to be. My mind was formed around the wounds carved deep into me by my father, seeing me as being most useful as something upon which he could vent his frustrations over his own failings and inadequacies, because I was too small and weak to fight back. From the time I was old enough to understand what the words meant, he never once passed up an opportunity to tell me how stupid and worthless I was if I wasn't doing exactly what he wanted. He's not my father. Physically, he's my sperm donor, but he's only the father of my suicidal depression that I've had since I was 5, my anxiety, my post-traumatic stress disorder, my rejection-sensitive dysphoria, my imposter syndrome, and the 27 other trauma responses and unhealthy coping mechanisms in the trench coat that made up my personality for so long. You know, if you needed help, you could have called me, he said. I held my tongue, but if I needed help, I would exhaust the possibilities of going out into the forest and attempting to explain my situation to the owls and raccoons through sign language, or waiting 65 million years to evolve into a completely different life form that no longer have a problem before I went to him. He offered his usual substitute for concern over my condition, which took the form of telling me that I was in said condition because everything I ever do is wrong, and that I could avoid it by simply doing everything he tells me. I made it a point to keep my end of the conversation civil and factual, but by the third day I reached a limit and had to correct him on some bit of Fox News anti-immigrant propaganda. He's never taken disagreement well, and voices were raised, followed by an airing of long-held grievance. "You're going to make me say it loud, so I'm the bad guy, aren't you?" I asked. "I don't need a bad guy," he retorted. "Make you say what? That you want me to walk out of your life and never come back?" I hesitated for a moment, and I could feel Mr. Freeze, Dr. Octopus, and the Penguin rising up out of my heart and taking control of my vocal cords. I am strangely comfortable with that. With that, he nearly grabbed himself by both ankles and ripped himself in half like Rumpelstiltskin. "I hope you have a long, happy life hating me, but I know I'm going to bury you because you don't have the sense to survive on your own." And he stormed out in a fury. I waited a few minutes to make sure he wasn't coming back and laughed like the Joker at how good it felt to be rid of him. I should have done this years earlier. Zach Shade was right. Things continued to proceed. I had a third surgery to attach an artificial skin graft over the opening where my missing toes used to be, which I was told was made from Icelandic cod. Interesting. My Comic-Con cosplay after alter ego mad scientist supervillain Dr. Deranged was giddy at becoming a hideous amalgamation of man and fish. That's one way of looking at it. The heavy-duty antibiotics were determined to have taken out the majority of the microbial equivalent of the host of Mordor that had been rampant throughout my system, so I was put on 2 other narrowly focused ones to deal with any stragglers and outsiders that remained. After 2.5 weeks in the hospital, I was discharged and sent to a rehab facility where I'd received the second course of antibiotics and physical therapy to get me up and walking again. My stay at rehab did not go smoothly. Where to begin? For a start, the food was terrible. I ended up subsisting on peanut butter and jelly or cheese sandwiches because they were the only things the kitchen wouldn't screw up. They found a way to ruin toast. Cold and soggy, I could understand. Cold and burnt, I could understand. But cold, soggy, and burnt all at the same time? I can't even begin to guess at the physical process required to reduce toast to that state. I think what they did is they probably just stacked a load of hot burnt toast together and left it for a few minutes, and then the steam coming off of it made it become all soggy. That's my guess. I don't know if I got a good night's sleep more than 3 or 4 times in the 6 weeks that I was there. There was no point in trying to watch the TV. My series of roommates inevitably kept it on the Yankee Baseball rerun channel at Old Man Who's Lost His Hearing Aid volume. 2 of them had talking in their sleep nightmares that woke me up every night, and one of them made terrifying growling sounds that suggested he might be turning into a werewolf from a Scooby-Doo cartoon. I later learned that was the noise he made when filling his diaper. Wonderful. The third was excruciatingly obnoxious and inconsiderate git who constantly moaned, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," with the regularity of a metronome about his discomforts, like he was trying to break a record for saying it the most times, and treated the staffs like servants at the court of King Louis XIV. When he threw a tantrum because the nurse was making her rounds and attending to other patients while he claimed to be in agony, I had had enough. I barked from the other side of the room's dividing curtain that there were 60 patients in the facility, none of us wanted to be there, we were all miserable, and he wasn't special, so he should deal with it like a bloody grown-up. He chose his response poorly. I leapt out of bed onto my bad foot, tore the corner aside, took the safeties from my venom glands, and unloaded them at him like a frilled spitter in Jurassic Park. I told him that maybe he wouldn't need his CPAP machine to breathe if he'd just shut up for 5 minutes, and if he whimpered, "Oh God," one more time, then I would arrange the meeting. The staff had to physically restrain me before I tried to garrote him with the suction hose of my wound vac and transferred me to a different room. My phone got lost during the move, but I took entirely too much satisfaction in seeing the look of bowel-emptying terror on that miserable bastard's face when he saw the being rude to strangers, his entire personality might be about to have some very immediate consequences. Continued below. All right, let's just keep going then. I'd been issued a smaller portable wound vac, but only after a week because the suction hose the hospital left implanted in my foot was incompatible with the rehab facility's machine. This required undoing and redoing my bandages to install a new hose, which was done incorrectly at first, and it took about another week before someone noticed that the new wound vac buzzing forcefully enough to vibrate the entire bed every 60 seconds was not a sound it was supposed to make, and was actually a warning that the seal was leaking. Dawn, the most skilled nurse at the facility, performed the procedure to fit the new hose in my wound correctly, but even with it working fine, being tethered to a machine with a clear canister slowly filling with pink sludge that used to be me is not an essentially reassuring experience. Normally I'd have bought something to read while laid up almost 2 months, but all I had with me were the clothes I was wearing when admitted to the hospital, so that wasn't an option. A co-worker had mercifully brought me half a dozen comics from a local shop a week before getting transferred to rehab. I read those at least 3 times each before trying to find an alternative. A room at the end of the hall had what passed for the facility's library of donated books. It consisted of 3 Bibles, a pair of autobiographies of political figures I despise, an introductory guide to teaching yourself Chinese, a metric pant load of romance novels reeking of old lady perfume, and a handful of romance novels pretending to be thrillers or mysteries. Eventually I found a well-worn copy of Isaac Asimov's science fiction magazine from 2021, and wheeling myself down to the dining room after dinner to spend a few hours reading it quietly each night became a load-bearing structure of my sanity. And my sanity took a severe beating in rehab. Aside from being kept awake by the nightmare of the man in the other bed, the place was full of patients handling their states far less well than I was. The man who was under the delusion that he was still at home, who roamed the halls and angrily demanded that everybody get out of his house. The woman who screeched like a banshee for help all day and night didn't seem to know why she was screaming when the staff arrived to see what was wrong, and then started screaming for help again once the nurse left. The man who asked everyone who passed him if they had seen his wife with a haunted expression that indicated he was desperately trying to avoid acknowledging that she almost certainly wasn't coming back. I felt like I was trapped in Arkham Asylum, filled with minds imprisoned in failing, decaying bodies, and bodies still stubbornly moving along after their minds had moved on. I took to going to the gym for physical therapy as early as I could every day because learning to walk again without ripping my surgery open was the only way I was getting out of there. I also started hanging out by the nurses' station, mostly because they kept the nearby TV tuned to something, anything, besides the same Rassilon-damned baseball game repeated 3 times per day, and partly because I was starting to develop a bit of a crush on Dawn, the nurse that correctly installed my wound vac tube. My brain told me that since she was an extraordinarily kind and competent nurse who also resembled a slightly older Margot Robbie bitten by a radioactive Lauren Ollie, now there's an image, and I was in her care, catching feelings for her was simply the way this sort of thing worked, like in The English Patient. I told my brain that we hadn't actually seen The English Patient. My brain responded that it had. In that case, I couldn't be proven wrong. It had me there. Very true. Still, I recognised that would be inappropriate and was just something my brain did to be inconvenient, so I resisted best I could. A tiny Mr. Spock beamed into my left shoulder, telling me, "Do not do it, it would be illogical." A tiny Lieutenant Worf beamed in on my right shoulder, warned me, "Do not do it, it would be dishonourable." A tiny Harley Quinn tugged at my beard, trying to puppeteer me like in Ratatouille. "I bet she's an absolute blast to have a tickle fight with. Challenge her to a tickle fight. You keep out of this, Harley, you're not helping." I decided that the responsible thing to do was advisor of the situation and apologised in advance if I overstepped any boundaries, but assured me that it was fine. I appreciated the internal dialogue I was having with my uncooperative brain and tiny Spock, Worf and Harley, and made a joke about how I needed to steady myself on the furniture because she was wearing those seductively low-cut purple ankle socks again, both of which amused her greatly. To paraphrase Rick James, making a beautiful lady laugh is a hell of a drug. At the end of July, the 6 weeks of antibiotics ended and I was sent home. My boss brought over my office computer setup and I started working from my kitchen table. I draw maps for a land surveyor, if I hadn't mentioned that before. That wasn't the end of my recovery, though. I was issued with yet a third wound vac, as the rehab facility kept the one they had assigned me, and this new one was compatible with the hospital's supplies. I spent another 6 weeks spending almost half my day at the hospital's wound care clinic, undergoing hyperbaric oxygen chamber treatments Monday through Friday. This involved laying down in a plexiglass tube full of pressurized oxygen for 2 hours a day to induce the tiny blood vessels in my foot to grow into recovery tissue and keep it healthy. I was told that vascular surgeons can reconnect arteries and brains and veins, but anything capillary-sized or smaller is beyond their ability to fix. The treatment seemed to do what they were supposed to do, and every Tuesday and Friday the doctors would change the dressing and give everything a good cleaning underneath. And they were always pleased with how much progress my foot was making towards being healed. Time passed and I underwent my last hyperbaric chamber treatment in late September, and shortly after that the doctors decided that my foot was healed up enough that I no longer needed the wound vac. Hooray! Wound care visits dropped from twice a week to just on Fridays, and each visit the doctors were even more enthusiastically excited by how much it had improved since the previous check-in, reacting almost the same way one does to a particularly impressive sports movie. A second skin graft was discussed, then dismissed, as it became apparent that the wound would close up on its own, long before my insurance company would get around to approving it. It finally sealed completely in late November, and for the first time since the end of May, my right foot was completely unbandaged and I could go back to wearing a simple, regular sock over it once again. There is a conclusion. Let's read it. Ultimately, the examination that previous week turned up a new pop blister on my left foot, the mirror image of the one that led to all the mess. The doctor wasted no time in putting on 10 days of antibiotics, in pill form this time, thankfully, cleaning it out thoroughly and applying some topical medications before wrapping my left leg in bandages from the knee down, much as they had been doing to my right all this time. I should point out that at this juncture that I haven't taken a shower, oh God, since I was admitted back to the hospital in June, and there's always been some kind of dressing on one or both of my feet that simply cannot be allowed to get wet. I've just been standing in front of the sink and scrubbing me sweaty bits with a soapy hand towel like a St. Bernard at the groomers. I said St. Bernard, weirdly. Anyway, however, this is not a setback, merely a slowdown. Throughout January, the doctors described it as having shrunk down to about the diameter of a pencil, and it spent this month stubbornly refusing to get smaller than an eighth of an inch wide. During today's visit, the doctor told me that it was the same size, but much cleaner, drier, full of healthy-looking tissue ready for new skin to grow over it, and not nearly as deep as it had been. So I'm calling that good news, and we'll see what next Friday brings. Things are going well now generally. I have a pair of special shoes with custom-fitted inserts that can make my way around my apartment in them unassisted, even if I stagger around like Boris Karloff. For leaving the house and going any appreciable distance, it may amuse you to learn that I rely upon my cosmic Zimmer frame. I'm just envisaging you now wearing a Orion helmet to go with it. Although, despite the purple bag with multiple pouches velcroed to the crossbar, it's still not as fancy as Orion's. I mean, what is fancier than Orion's cosmic harness, Mary? Nothing.
Sure.
The next lengthy process will be getting my eyes dealt with. I've been undergoing treatment over the past few years for a condition called macular edema, whereas a side effect of diabetes, the blood vessels in my eyes swell and expand, and in doing so, they push against my retina, bending it out of shape, and blurring and distorting my straight ahead and distance vision. I also have cataracts, but they can't be treated until the edema is under control. An eye doctor in Toms River has been giving me monthly injections, alternating eyes, to shrink the blood vessels down, and prior to my hospitalization, the injections were spread out to once every 6 weeks, then once every 8 weeks in 2024 and 2025. The doctor was confident that we were past the shrinking them down phase and entering the keeping them stable phase. Unfortunately, the business with my foot and subsequently trying to get back on it knocked my eye care off course, and a visit in January revealed that the macular edema had spent the previous 7 months going absolutely feral. There was not just swelling but active bleeding in both eyes. I couldn't even see the chart or test card, and the cataract in my right eye was so thick that his equipment couldn't get a clear picture of the inside. So this year I'm getting injections in both eyes every month to get the swelling beaten back as quickly as possible. During the most recent visit, week or so ago, both bleeding and internal pressure were improved, and I could read the top 2 lines of the chart with my least bad eye, so improvement continues. And having told my tale, I'm caught up with Totally Schway at last and finally ready to return to being an active contributor to the comment section. I know I'm entirely too late for it, but I did have a thought or two about your What Would You Get the Justice League for Christmas episode. By all means, let's share it. The Flash gets more steps in every day than most people do in the year. I'd get him a pair of the galaxy's most comfortable slippers for his downtime. I think Wonder Woman would enjoy tickets to see a modern performance of the work of an ancient Greek playwright, most likely Lysistrata by Aristophanes. It's a satirical comedy about the women of Athens and Sparta working together to end a war started by the foolish pride of their menfolk, right up Diana's alley. And as something to look forward to beside all this medical anxiety, I've been researching and planning to get a freshwater aquarium. The plan is to get a big tank, 55 or 75 gallons, and keep tiny little fish of 2 inches or less. Cardinal tetras, harlequin rasboras, panda corridoras, rummy-nosed tetras, and zebra danios. Those sound like made-up sweet names. I'm going down the shops for some panda corridoras. Do you want anything? Anyway, in groups of about 10 or so each, with a dwarf gourami and a bristle-nose pleco, which stay about 4 and 5 inches respectively. I could be talked into adding some black neon tetras, brilliant green rasboras, and glowing tetras down the line, perhaps more the end of the year. Screen wipers, chicken news updates may be joined by Michael's tropical fish news updates. Keep fingers crossed. See you in a week to discuss Derek Powers and Blight. Yes, thank you for that very lengthy comment, but it was definitely worth sharing with everyone because we did notice you hadn't been around for a while.
And thank you for sharing, because you're not only telling us about obviously where you've been in your life and all of that, you're getting frustrations out too. It cannot have been comfortable at all having to go through all of that, and I'm really sorry that's happened to you. I cannot watch old baseball games. I cannot. I like baseball when I'm actually there. We used to have a team in Oklahoma City called the Red Hawks that I really enjoyed going to their games with like the school and whatnot. I liked that. But I could not watch a repeat baseball game, especially the older ones that are like over 5 years old, because I'm just like I can't do this. I my uncle would watch old golf on the golf channel, and I couldn't. I just I could not do it. So I don't know how you did all of that, but obviously that's more of a joke than anything else. But I'm so happy that you were able to actually be able to speak to us, and I'm so happy that you're here.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to the next comment, which is from Brian Jones, who says, "Hello, Luke and Mary, and happy Valentine's Day to you all, and now for the way of all flesh. One thing that stands out to me about John Corbyn is that the only thing that makes him regret his decision to do his brain transplant is that he can't sexually assault women anymore. Luke, what is an incel? Is it a man who says awful stuff about women? Incel stands for involuntary celibacy, or an involuntary celibate. So basically, it's someone that is rejected by romantic partners and they kind of lash out and they become unpleasant about it. I'm not sure if you remember, Luke, but a while back I posted my favourite cartoon character Bingo on your community tab, and on New Year's Eve I printed them out and turned them into a real-life bingo game. And since I'm hyper-fixated on Sonic Racing crosswords at the moment, mainly the rival interactions in the game, I was wondering if me and my favourite cartoon characters are in a racing game, what would our rival actions be? I don't know. I've not actually played the Sonic Racing game, I'm afraid, so I can't really tell you.
I think I have either.
I think we've got it, but I just haven't played it. You think you've got it on the Switch?
I
Switch
don't
2?
like racing games because I don't win.
Nah.
I'm just being honest with you. It's not necessarily, it's like I don't like Mario Kart because
Because I always win.
well, the idea of the game sounds really fun and everything, but actually playing it, I'm a bad driver in real life. Like I'm a terrible driver. Um, it doesn't get any better on like GTA
Mm.
or Mario Kart. At least on GTA, I'm not like, most of the time, I'm not like on a time limit.
Mm. Let's continue the comments. I'm not going to say all of the interactions because it will make my comment way too long. But for example, I will be fanboying over Mario, Sonic, Buzz, Woody, Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and Batman. Or like I will be trying to ask all the hot female characters out on a date, or asking Grandpa Pickles, Tommy Chuckle, and Winnie the Pooh, do they know what they are getting themselves into? But when it comes to villains like Harley, Calendar Girl, and Mr. Freeze, I'll be telling them that I want to rehabilitate them. But when it comes to the rest of the villains, I will be mocking them, like Lockup, for example. I'll be annoying him, saying that I am part of the liberal media to see his reaction. When it comes to Joker, I will say that his name is the Joker because he's the biggest joke I have ever seen. I forgot to say this in the last episode, but I know about the Adventures of Batman and Robin Sega CD game from James's Will It Cannon video on Watchtower Database. Don't worry about owning the Sega CD when it was when it was new. Most people don't, and only reason someone would own it is because of Sonic CD. Finally, the Clock King blind, a fighter, is happening. I am so happy. I was worried that wouldn't happen. I had a good Valentine's Day this year, even if I didn't have a girlfriend to celebrate it with this year again. But it doesn't matter if you don't have one on Valentine's Day. Just go and celebrate it with people you care about.
Word,
Absolutely.
word.
Um,
Valentine's Day is one of those holidays where it is mainly for going out and like big companies want you to go out and buy things and all that. I know like they used to say, oh, it's a holiday Hallmark invented or whatever. I don't know the ins and outs of how Valentine's was created, but I know it's like Saint Valentine and whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're gonna celebrate love, it doesn't have to be with a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever. It could be with yourself. You can celebrate the love that you have for yourself and the love that you have for other people. And anybody that says any different can take a hike.
you can celebrate Palentine's Day for you and your pals.
And you can do what I did, is I gave my cats extra treats.
Mm-hmm. Right, next comment. There's one from Screenwiper here. It says, at 27 minutes and 31 seconds, there will be no accusations, only friendly crustaceans under the sea, Metallo. Yes, I suppose so. He did become Sebastian from The Little Mermaid. There's more from Screenwiper in a minute, but I'll get to that once we've gone through these chronologically. David Carney says, hi, Mary and Luke. Happy Valentine's Day, both. Tim Burton is one of my favourite directors, just like John Carpenter. Highly recommend They Live. Did you know James Corden was nearly in The Lord of the Rings? Blah! Really enjoyed this episode, especially as tearing off the fake skin as horror elements. The only Malcolm McDowell film I've seen is Star Trek Generations. Have a good week, everyone.
I'm going to be honest. I don't like James Gordon.
Corden,
Corden.
not Gordon. What's wrong with the commissioner?
Not not him. I love Kamish. But the former talk show host, I do not like him. And there's one thing in particular that I don't like, other than the fact that I've never even liked him, even though I've never seen, was it Gavin and Stacey?
Yeah.
I never saw that. I had this feeling that I just did not care for him. But there was this one thing when he was in Cats, he did one of those things. I've only seen clips of it where he was like stopping people in their cars and everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that watched his show were quite young, and then he was just like humping the air, and it was just so weird and awful. And it's like, I understand that in some of the music things that I like The Weeknd, for example. Um, he does like a bit of the bump and grind and some of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but it's not in the middle of the day, in the middle of the street when kids are in the car.
Mm-hmm.
That really pisses me off.
I can tell you a little James Corden story. Now, I've never met the man, don't know him personally. You know what? Maybe he is really
Maybe
nice.
I was about to say, were you at the Bath Bazaar?
No, no. So when I was fresh out of university, some friends and I were working on a sketch comedy
Butter me
program.
up.
Yeah. And we had a meeting with an ITV producer, like a virtual meeting, I suppose. And basically, he went through our material and said, this is after James Corden's sketch show with his writing partner. I've forgotten his name. Horn, I think his surname was. Anyway, it'd been a massive flop. And he said to us, sketch comedy's dead if a superstar like James Corden can't get a Garlic rating success, then no one can.
But was he a superstar?
Well,
No.
at the time he was with
I
Gavin and Stacey, but I would argue that his sketch show was just generally not very funny.
I just
Um, but that was our one brush with near fame. The producer going, well, this is all well and good, but people just don't want sketch comedy. Look, James Corden couldn't pull it off. Like, wow, yeah,
maybe
it's
they
because it
should
was
have
crap.
maybe they should have thought, oh, maybe people don't like JC.
Maybe,
Is it J? Yeah, C, not G. Um, I just can't. I don't. There's and also like he seems like the type of person, and this is something that like when I say the Battlers are, that seems to be true. But I've always thought that he seems like one of those people that would be really nice on a talk show, but an asshole
hmm
in like IRL. And it's
maybe,
like, why? Like those people that you're being an asshole to, a lot of them are fans of yours. They're the ones that get you your high paycheck. So why are you treating them like that? Especially at a restaurant. Come on. I come on. Those
yes.
people have lives outside of that. And to pay for those lives, they're working at a restaurant and you're treating them like dog shit. Why?
hmm
You're such a little person. I call that, I'm not gonna actually say what it is, but like LDE energy.
Hmm.
Like LD energy.
hmm
Maybe that's what you were gonna say.
I don't remember now.
I just, ugh,
Yeah, join us next week for more criticism of James Corden on Totally Not James Corden.
yeah. Ugh, I
Anyway,
just don't like him.
anyway. Um, oh no, I have another
I've
story I'll
never met
share.
him either.
No, so someone I used to know through my work, my day job. He had tweeted about how much he disliked a James Corden film that had just been on TV.
Hmm.
And James Corden actually messaged him on Twitter and was like, "Yeah, thanks for making me feel like shit."
Wait,
What?
was this like,
He was searching for himself.
yeah, like what? Like, how much of a loser are you? I mean, says the person that Googled herself yesterday,
Well,
just because I wanted to see what information this particular website have. Um, oh my God, what a loser.
yeah.
What a narcissistic loser.
Well, we don't know him personally. He might have just been having a
Well, I
bad
mean,
day.
we kind of do because he puts it out on, I was gonna swear then. He puts it out on the internet. Like,
Mm.
grow up. Why don't you just like stop and go touch some grass? You can tell I don't feel very well.
Yeah. So I'm going to move on now because I'm tired of talking about him. So we're going to talk about Dragon Master's comment next, who says, Happy Valentine's Day to you guys. An interesting thing I discovered about the STAS episode is the biblical reference in the title. It comes from the first book of Kings, when King David sends a final message to his son Solomon. The excerpt reads as follows. When the time of David's death draws near, he gave these instructions to Solomon his son. I am about to go the way of all the earth, be strong and be a man. I should also note that there are printings and or copies of the Bible that have the way of all the earth written as the way of all flesh. When looking at it from this analytical standpoint, the way of all flesh that King David refers to is the natural cycle we as humans experience, the progression of life and our eventual passing. In addition, I additionally find it fascinating how there are characters in the DCAU who inadvertently or otherwise face the consequences of trying to escape death or finding a loophole to extend their lifespans, like characters such as Mr. Freeze, Grant Walker in Deep Freeze, Robert Vance in Batman Beyond's Lost Soul, and even Felix Faust in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Absolutely very true. Anything to add, Mary?
Oh, I'm there's coming from the Bible about I'll just tell you something. My grandmother, when we were like really young, um, it was when I was about 4 years old, right before I stopped going to church. She got all of the grandkids that were alive at the time, their own little Bibles. The funny thing is, I mean, they were all really cute and everything for a book, and the funny thing about it is she bought half of them at one place, right? Because the that was like all of the she wanted them all to be like the same colors and everything. And then this is the same place, but a different location. She bought the other halves. Here's the thing. Half of them had. There was one, I can't even remember what story it was, but there was one story in particular that my aunt pointed out that was in mine, but wasn't in one of my cousins.
Mm.
And I asked about that. This is when I was older, and I was like, well, why do I do that? And she explained to me that that just happens sometimes.
And were you blamed for it?
I don't think not this time.
Surprising.
No, not this time. But the thing about that is, like, I didn't know that depending on like where you live or whatever, some stories are taken out. Um, I don't even know. I can't, like I said, I can't remember. This was like 30 years ago. Um, this particular story was probably taken out due to like cousins or whatever, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then put back
In a
at a
later
different
version.
time
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it happens all the time in publication, but I just thought that was a funny story.
Mm-hmm. Right, next we've got Lowell Lucas Jr.'s comment who says, today's the day, my duckies. You're lucky to stay for a very special Valentine's Day. Welcome aboard the old In and Out, where Malcolm McDowell will scream and shout. He'll fill your life with misery and woe as Superman falls victim to his kryptonite glow. Stand by for a while. It's a great display because your voice is awesome and will blow you away. Happy Valentine's Day to you, Gilgamesh. Yes. Happy Valentine's Day, Gilgamesh, for
Wait,
the other week. What?
Lowell, I haven't opened it until just now because you know what you sent me on Facebook.
Was it a Muppet Show sketch?
Can you see if there's the actual Muppets or if it's just going to be the cast?
Yeah, it's got Muppets in it, so
You're so mean.
happy Valentine's Day to you, Gilgamesh, for loving the Midwestern Mama Mary and that goddamn Luke man. May your furry and pesky escapades bring them together forever. Call me crazy, but I love Malcolm McDowell. Yes, his Alex the Large was a louse, but I enjoyed that louse as Arcady Duval from the BTS episode Showdown. Baron Van Ghoulish, Billy and Mandy. Abraham Whistler, Superman the Animated Series. Abraham Whistler? Oh, Spider-Man, not Superman, excuse me. Mad Mod in Teen Titans, and even Varney in Castlevania. No spoiler, but he really is. But he is also wearing a flesh disguise. He's just a manic delight and made Metallo very memorable to me than just a robo-man with a glowing rock from the comics. With that being said, on to Metallo. That evil asshole who I can't quite hate, but can read the room when they glare at him. I won't lie when I say how evil it must be to lie to someone that you're now mechanically after, falsifying it to save your life. I would hate to never share a physical interaction with a loved one, feeling of taste, touch, or smell. Only having memories of such interactions or feelings would drive me nuts. Maybe not Metropolis levels, but definitely some vulgarities would be spewed. Now I'm beginning to understand how General Grievous would take out his anger on the Jedi from Darth Sidious's betrayal. But just don't tell him. That said, Metallo lives in a world full of super science and magic users. You'd think someone would have easily fixed his condition, used crazy mad science to transfer him to a living flesh body. Hey, it worked for Victor Fries. Magically made him a new one, or even get upgraded by Brainiac. But I'm thinking he enjoys his new life, maybe getting a thrill out of it. Why else would he still be there in the Legion of Doom in the Harley Quinn show, or always show up with half flesh and half metal face, always in the same position? Maybe has a good pension plan or something. Now that you mention it, it is a shame that the two McDowells haven't met together on the same show. I would have loved my favourite ape man Cornelius to be a member of Alex the Large's wily crew. Sadly, Roddy McDowell would never face Metallo, although I could see the Mad Hatter using the brain chip card on Malcolm to get him some milk. He needs some milk, and become ever so pissed when he's out of said control. Could have easily gotten help another way, but why bother when you have a new toy? In closing, thank you for all the wonderful shout out and toy news. I want Zatanna and I can't wait. Now, both of you enjoy your love and passion on this momentous day. I have a hot girl I'm cooking for, so I'll be in touch. So then, my duckies, TTFN, ta-ta for now. Yes.
What did we do on actual Valentine's Day?
I cooked, we ate, we watched a movie. We watched The Substance, didn't we?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
We also recently watched Kill Bill over again
Mm-hmm.
because I think that was when I started to get ill.
Mm.
I was just wanted to watch something I've seen before.
But yes, thank you for your comment, Lower Lucas Jr. I hope you had a nice day. Next, we have RJ Productions, who says, no new chapter this week. Sorry, guys, I need a break until I can find a way of continuing the story, but here's something that'll make up for it. Hello, I found your email address through a mailing list. Your profile said you are interested in Smile Dog. I have saw it. It is not as bad as everyone says. I have sent it to you here, just spreading the word. Okay. Happy belated Valentine's Day, everyone, and happy Single Awareness Day for my fellow bachelors.
Is this so? If I Google this,
I'm not going to.
if I if I Google this, am I going to be amazed, uh, troubled, or a little bit of both?
I don't know.
Because sometimes I am uh, equally both.
Let's continue with Alexandra Faulk's comment, who says, This episode represents one of the things I like about Metallo's character, how he keeps getting better and better with each reinvention. His debut story in the Silver Age showed Corbin was a very cunning criminal, being able to infiltrate the Daily Planet and stole Superman's identity to commit crimes. The post-crisis gave him the Terminator look, which is the definitive look for the character, by the way. Recent comics, in particular the New 52 Grant Morrison run, had Corbin as one of General Lane's soldiers, who chose to become a cyborg to kill Superman and so on. In the case of the DCAU, it gave Corbin this tragic aspect that he's a man trapped in a robotic body, no longer able to eat, sleep, or feel anything. But not to the point of making him into a poor, misunderstood guy. He's still a cruel mercenary who had no problem lying, killing innocents, and forcing himself on women. Similar to Mojo from BTAS and Hotstreak from Static Shock, Corbin can be seen as the embodiment of toxic masculinity, thinking that things like good looks, strength, and knowing rich people makes him successful and respected, instead of being kind and a good person, something that is represented by Superman, a powerful alien who uses strength to protect and chooses to live a compassionate, mild-mannered reporter instead of showing off his power. Corbin's loss of humanity can be seen as tragedy, but also an ironic punishment, with him becoming literally the monster he was inside all along. My only nitpick is that Corbin's desire for revenge on Luthor is never brought up again, with the following episodes focusing on his rivalry with Superman, but being okay with Luthor around, with the two even being part of Grodd's Legion of Doom in Justice League Unlimited. Yeah, that's a fair point. I guess in the end he forgave him and decided to make the most of his situation. Maybe when his mind was damaged after being under the sea for so long, he might have forgotten part of it, or maybe it lessened the impact of it.
Would you forgive?
Probably not. I might try not to hold it against them forever, but I certainly would never forget.
One of my things about my neurodivergence makes me never. I mean, I can forgive people, but I don't forget things. Like, I mean, I forget the most important things in life, but like, if you've wronged me, nope. I'm gonna be like, I'll be having like the most beautiful day of my life. I'll have pet a giraffe, and a giraffe will have given me like the cutest little cuddles, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about it again, and I'm like, this this will be the downfall of that person. I'll take my giraffe, and we will ride at dawn.
All right. Well, next we have Doc Widener, who says, Thank goodness you're here. We saw the Blues Brothers this past summer, and they showed, and I think I mentioned, an extended cut. Had scenes that I'd never seen before. It was a bit distracting, but it added to the film more than it distracted. Glad you mostly had a good time. I believe he's talking about our trip to the Batman Symphony thing.
Yeah.
Many years ago, we went to a similar show at the Nationwide Arena that was narrated by Anthony Daniels and covered the Star Wars music of John Williams. Showed clips from the films, but not the entire films. Metallo. Second week in a row talking about Admiral Tolwyn from Wing Commander 3 and 4, Malcolm McDowell. It was interesting how many fairly prominent British actors started doing voice explains in animation, and especially video games in the mid to late 90s. Clive Owen was your avatar in Wing Commander Privateer 2. Speaking of Fallout, you had David Warner, who voiced a super mutant. He was also in the aforementioned Privateer 2, and to wrap it up, he played Admiral Tolwyn in the live-action Wing Commander movie. I did like how they kept bringing Metallo back, and he was always made it clear that at the end of the episode he was in, that he was not really gone, kind of like Jason Voorhees. I do not recall the scene in Generations you mentioned. I do know that in the two Wing Commander games there was nothing lurid his character did. So the thing I was thinking of is when he goes down on the planet and he's wandering around in the woods, and then the camera like pans out massively. I'm probably just misremembering and mixing it up with something else, because I've only seen Generations once, and that was like when it came out, I think. But anyway, did you guys enjoy Fallout Season 2? Mostly, yes.
I enjoyed it a
Hmm.
lot. Um, there was one there was one episode that I didn't I just you know those filler episodes? I've talked about this before, but I'm not I would have rather had one less episode and then have that just sprinkled in to
Hmm.
the other episodes, like extended the other episodes rather than having an episode all on its own. I think it was in the middle. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not off the top of my head.
It had something to do with him and the wife.
Uh,
I thought that could have been that. Although I do like that storyline. It just wasn't a lot of thing in that one particular episode. But yeah, it was fun. I'm looking forward to what they're gonna do with the third season.
mhm.
Um, it's one of those shows where actually it's getting even better as it's progressing. Um, kind of like what how Dexter did, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it, and that, I can't say that a lot about other shows that I've seen recently.
To continue Doc's comment, I know Luke is too busy, but Fallout London is so impressive an achievement. Some of the law purists have issues, but I enjoyed it. It did almost have a few too many threads, so I think it could have used a couple more episodes. But enjoying Knights of Seven Kingdoms, definitely a tighter story and so far sticks way closer to the source material. Have you seen Shrinking? Can't recall. Quite possibly the best work Harrison Ford has ever done. No, we haven't watched it.
No, but it keeps getting advertised to me, and every time that it does get advertised to me, I'm like, I should probably watch this.
Hmm.
I should probably watch it because it has that guy from that show on that channel.
Yeah,
Um,
that's correct.
I trying to remember what he was in. How I Met Your Mother. Yeah,
Oh.
he was in that. I've never watched that show, but I know I know that's how that man got popular. But yeah, I like Harrison Ford for the most part.
Need to get up. I hear Daniel sniffling a bit. May make him some scrambled eggs and either sausage or bacon. Why not both? He has had an all-day training session tomorrow for camp counselor work this summer, so I need him healthy. I must confess I did not notice until today that when you did the rebrand, you started renumbering these. Yeah, because it's totally Schway 2.0. Finally, one of my other UK YouTubers, I picture you folks have fish and chips at the pub. Not very often, no, you get it from a fish and chip shop, they're better. Is John from Many a True Nerd. He had a video about a game I cannot recommend to not buy or play enough. But if you want a good laugh, John Valentine's Day video about Bonjour Cream Inside made me actually burst out laughing several times. Mary should watch his video on Thank Goodness You're Here, which she hasn't played yet. Happy Valentine's Day, you two. Hopefully the pictures of Sergey and the cow and Daniel side-eyeing Mickey helped add joy to your day.
I did not notice the numbering until I looked at my channel one day, and I was like, "Oh, I think that was like 3 weeks in."
Mm-hmm. Next, we have Big Mikey P's comment, and he says, "Can understand Luke wanting Batman 1989 or the animated series more than the Goonies. I'm the kind who shunned Sailor Moon when Cardcaptor Sakura's right there. The fun time sure got had for you too when it comes to Batman 89's orchestral re-release, excuse me. That force kiss on Lois sure surprisingly and neatly got past the censorship radar. Well, it's because it was integral to the story. That's why they were allowed to do it. Overall, The Way of All Flesh is a really good Superman the Animated Series and, of course, DCAU episode as a whole. Just remember to watch it before feeding time, featuring Parasite, though, for better continuity." 23 minutes and 27 seconds. Also surprised Clancy Brown and Ron Perlman partook in Fallout Season 2 and as live-action actors too. Basically, DCAU John Corbin Metallo is the video game Soma character Simon all over again. Yeah, I suppose so, yeah. Interesting that Metallo actually comes back in a different non-canonical fashion in Superman Adventures issue 2 before the episode action figures was a thing. Speaking of Malcolm McDowell, no plans for rereading or rewatching A Clockwork Orange. Oh, and he's also Whistler, Blades ally from Spider-Man the Animated Series. Rogue ain't Rogue, Malcolm McDowell ain't Roddy McDowell. We need some milk, Breaking Bad's Jesse!
He does need some help.
Yeah, Spider-Man the Animated Series, fast-paced narrations without any time to breathe killed my rewatch hype for the show and by extension X-Men. There, I said it. Sorry to folks like Julia Rowell and curse you, Avi Arad. For that, I'm more of a fan of polished Spidey iterations like Sam Raimi's and the Spider-Verse films. Don't worry, Luke. I know about Mary Jane Watson, Venom and Carnage getting isekai'd in the animated series. We'll await April Moon for April 2026. Yeah, probably. I mean, I've got a video coming about that. Anyway, personal book recap. Finally finished Dune Messiah, a fitting if noticeably anticlimactic end to what was started on in the first book, and can see why Denis Villeneuve prefers to end his film here as part of the Paul Muad'Dib story arc, with no The Preacher and Leto 2 story arcs at all. Shall take a long break before reading Children of Dune, God Emperor Dune, and I guess the Dune Encyclopedia. Going to be a spicy doozy when it happens. I don't think those words have ever been said in the same sentence before, so well done. Same goes for the Cardinal of the Kremlin onwards, or backwards, since it's a prequel to Patriot Games, its proverbial Irish Republican army connivings, albeit with the fictional Ulster Liberation Army, and saving the likes of the Prince of Wales, Charles III, Diana, and baby William from them, and hopefully create a butterfly effect that prevents their infidelity scandals and Diana's demise. Yet still at Red Storm Rising, but I'm close to finishing just alongside the aforementioned Patriot Games, and after RSI has done perhaps a reread of Elliot S. Maggin's Superman the Last Son of Krypton and Miracle Monday duology will follow. Afterwards, maybe Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey and 2010's Odyssey 2 after those. Nicholas Montserrat's The Cruel Sea. TV show recap gladly saw to Furion Season 2, Episodes 4 or 5, of course. They're going to have no new episodes for February 20th, but for 27th of February they'll be back. Finally finished the 26-episode run of Aria the Natural. Even finished the Arietta over and the first of 4 episodes of Origination Season 3. Episode 4 of Puella Magi Madoka Magica, even watching compilation movie 1 beginnings up to this point. Yeah, I'm a mad lad. Yeah, what a mad lad. I've lost my place. Yeah, I'm a mad lad and rewatching the very same anime twice. You lunatic, what is going on? Chill, slow down, man. You're going crazy. But with redrawn scenes, redone voice acting, and even newer music. Finally finished the Madoka Magica Scene 0 fan sub binge, and will continue with the Red vs. Blue web series binge from seasons 12 to 14. And I'm now at Red vs. Blue season 12, episode 6. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting into the movie recap.
But what did you think about the latest episode of 911 and Grey's Anatomy?
We'll not wait for a response. Movie recap. Have rewatched Wes Anderson's fantastic Mr. Fox and Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2. Not as faithful to their books, but amazing adaptations nonetheless, despite or because of them. Have also seen the fantastic adventures of Unico Japanese audio with English subtitles. Won't lie, the movie is still emotionally fresh, unexpectedly action-packed. And Yoshiaki Kawajiri, Levels of Scary after all these years. Proceeding to Uniqlo and the Island of Magic next. Rewatching Girls und Panzer der Film, David Swift's Pollyanna and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, English audio and subtitles. Will follow too.
Okay, I have a question for you, Big Maggie P. And I might have asked you this before, but it's on my mind again. My, I don't know what to call him anymore, but a person that was living with us when we lived at Luke's parents' house liked Japanese and Korean films. I think he still does, which is cool. And he watched this one of this kid, like in a particular scene. It was like really interesting movie, and I would like to see it again. But this kid is like standing next to a tree, right? And I think he's like, there's like he's like in makeup or something, and then like you see his eyes. Do you know what this is? Could you help me find it? Could you like it seemed like a good movie, like because I think there was something like he had been sent to this place with these people and all of that. Please help me.
I really need to finish this comic because we're over an hour and people don't like it when we get over an hour.
Hmm.
And I think a friend is going to send a copy of some Barefoot Jen Grave of the Fireflies type movie. I think it's Kyoko Diary, also known as Al Amal by an Arabic fandom. Oh, I see. Al Amal. Okay.
Oh,
A sorted recap. Perhaps I'll try making a Letterboxd account this year. Besides, I've made my own Internet Archive account a while back, complete with some collected free books, and I do want to express myself and my own media preferences more. Guess Batman Beyond's Derek Powers / Blight in the next 2 weeks. Will await. And finally, we're going on to Screen Wiper. Who says, before the chicken update, Metallo is one of my favourite Superman villains simply because it's pretty much exactly what would happen if Superman was a thing. A greedy billionaire capitalist like Lex Luthor would have a reason to want to stop Superman making the world less unjust, and would find out about kryptonite and would make some kind of kryptonite-based tech which would with which to fight Superman, and that possibly would involve changing a man into a kryptonite Terminator thing. It's all very logical, cause and effect, as well as just a cool concept in general. Now, chicken news. Sunday, 15th of February. Wilma and Betty are both laying good eggs and have just started laying less often, getting some much-needed rest. I was expecting Wilma's eggs to start degrading in quality by now, but I did also say a couple of months back that it is not uncommon for a chicken to exceed expectations. Mabel is still off work. It's weird that my two past life expectancy 4-year-olds are laying eggs and my prime of her life 2-year-old is not, but I'm sure it will be the other way around again by summer. Wilma's still doing a bit of plucking other hens' bum feathers, and Betty gets grumpy at Mabel sometimes, usually when she's going to lay an egg soon. But they cut the crap when they get told off. Most of the time they're perfectly civil, if not friendly, to Mabel. Wilma and Betty did get themselves locked out of the coop one evening and were just starting to fall asleep in the aviary. Wilma on the high perch and Betty in the green box when I showed up, like I do every evening and night, to check whether something like that has happened. They didn't want to get up and go to bed, though. Every hen I knew who always slipped outside got eaten eventually. Other people's, not my hens. Be good like Mabel and go to bed before dark, I said. The coop closes slightly later now and nobody has gotten locked out since. As I finished writing this, usually quiet Mabel just had a bark-off with Milo, the cockapoo, who lives 3 doors down. Not sure who won. They both stopped when I went outside. Each animal probably thinks it was themselves. And those are all of the comments. So, anything else you want to add, Mary?
I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah, so Mary's not feeling well. She's going back to bed. This has been an extra long episode. Join us again next week where we're going to talk about Derek Powers / Blight from Batman Beyond. And with that, all that's left to say is...
I love you guys. Goodbye.
I was going to say go Schway.
And drink water.